Alright guys, so in this video I'm gonna answer the question of whether you should eat before or after a workout. And no, you don't have to worry about that at all. All you really have to worry about as a beginner, or at any time for that matter, is the amount of protein you get in. That's the number one factor you have to worry about. And that's about a gram per pound of body weight. Although you can eat a little less than that because it's quite difficult to get in that amount of protein, honestly. It's just like an arbitrary rule, or like obviously there is some to it, but around there, right? It doesn't matter if you eat a little less. And that's 2.2 grams per kilo body weight. Number two is you want to eat good foods, what I call good foods. In reality, there's just food, right? But to simplify it for myself, I have created two categories, and it's obviously like a spectrum, right? But bad foods are foods that serve as entertainment. Stuff like candy, chips, typical fast food, right? This quick calories gives you that dopamine rush, full of sugars, fats, etc. Low on things like vitamins, minerals, and perhaps also proteins, right? And you have good foods, which are all the foods you see all the fitness people eat, right? Healthy foods. We all know what this looks like. And that's different sorts of meats, right? Eggs, different sorts of vegetables, complex carbohydrates like rice, whole grain bread, so on and so forth. Those are the foods you want to eat. So protein, you want to keep protein high. You want to eat these kinds of foods like for the majority of your diet. Obviously, sometimes you can have a little fun, sure, but typically you want to be at work, right? Number three factor, which you actually don't really have to worry about as a beginner, but that's eating in a surplus or a deficit. So what they call bulking and cutting, right? So it's essentially just a simple equation for your body. So your body burns calories during the day. A calorie is just another word for a unit of energy. So it's just energy. Like when you eat food, your body gains energy, right? So if you want to gain weight, you want to eat in a surplus, which is just eating more food than you burn during the day. If you want to lose weight, you want to eat in a deficit, which is the opposite. So you eat less food than your body needs and burns during the day. A simple equation like that. And I mean, for most people, at least for myself included, but also a lot of people I've seen, when you begin training, you just automatically eat in a surplus in a way. Like I don't know if your appetite increases. I don't really know about that. But if you don't automatically start eating a little more food than usual, and it's really just a little more food you need. You don't want to go crazy, then just get fat, which you see so many people doing. Just a little more food, like 200 calories perhaps. If you don't do that automatically, you can consciously just add that to your portions, I suppose. So if you eat high protein and good foods, and you eat that food to where you can retain your weight, right? So you find your maintenance level. So the amount of that food you have to eat to maintain your weight, then you just add around 200 calories to that. And that's 2 eggs on a piece of bread. That's like what it looks like visually. That's the amount of food you want to add. And if you do that, you increase your surplus, and with that, you're able to gain weight quicker. Like you don't have to do this as a beginner, but it's definitely recommended because you have to do it later on. Like in my position anyway, where I've been training for 6-7 years, like 5-6 years perhaps properly, I have to eat in a surplus if I want to gain any muscle, any strength. And it's a slow process. It's way quicker in the beginning, and it slows down as you get more experienced, right? But yeah, so eating a surplus to start with, just a couple hundred calories more than your maintenance level. And if you only increase it by a couple hundred calories, this is a very important point, you can just eat in a surplus forever. Like you never have to cut ever. I have never personally had a cut ever. I've gone from around 65 kilos 5 years ago or so to around 90 kilos today. So that's about 25 kilos of muscle. That's about 45, 50, 55 pounds, something like that. 50 pounds of mostly muscle. I'm not that, I don't have that much fat on my body, and I never have. You can call that genetic. I mean, I guess I've always been a skinny guy, but I credit it more to the fact that I've never ever had a traditional bulk, you could say, where you just stuff yourself with tons of food to get fat. That's really what you do. Like, you can't escape that. And it's not like you're going to build that much more muscle. Okay, so for God's sake, avoid like going on a full-on bulk. You just want to eat in a slight surplus. All right, just a little more food than usual. And then you can use the mirror to keep track of your progress. You don't need to wait or any of that. You don't have to track your food. Just eat intuitively. If you eat high protein and eat good foods, what I covered before, you can just eat intuitively and use the mirror to keep track of your progress. So you can see, oh, I'm actually gaining weight. I'm gaining a little too much fat, perhaps. My ab muscles are kind of disappearing. Or, I can start feeling my belly fat. Maybe I should decrease the surplus I'm eating in a little bit. Then you just cut off a little food and then check back in a couple of weeks' time. This is a slow process, guys. You're not going to get fat overnight, but you're not going to get muscular overnight either. So you can just use the mirror to keep track of if you're eating correctly. And then over time, you're going to grow. In the beginning, you're going to grow a lot. And then you can just keep eating like that, really. Like in a slight surplus. A couple hundred calories for ever. Really, you don't ever have to stop doing that. Unless you think you get too fat at some point. But if you get too fat, you fucked up along the way. Because then you increase the surplus too much, right? So yeah, that's what I've done anyway. And then when you get to a point a couple of years in where you maybe want to cut off, like to reveal the muscle fully, like where you get really ripped and stuff, then you can just decrease the amount of food you eat. Because you're going to eat the same foods pretty much. I mean, all these fitness guides, there's not that many foods to choose from, all right? There's like meats, eggs, blah, blah, blah. Everyone eats the same stuff, and you're going to eat the same stuff as well. So you eat the same foods, after a couple of weeks or a month maybe, like what you eat pretty much. And you just decrease that a little bit. And then you lose weight. And you want to decrease it as little as you increase the surplus. So a couple of hundred calories at most. So you keep muscle and only lose the fat, right? If you go into too much of a deficit, first of all, you're not going to make it most likely because it's too difficult. And you're going to lose a lot of muscle. If you only decrease it by a couple hundred calories, you don't have to worry about hunger, really. Like, you don't really get that hungry at all. It just feels like you're eating normally. So it becomes super easy to lose weight. Like, if you follow these 3 steps forever, you can do. This is not only for beginners. This is for everyone. This is what I personally do. You can just keep gaining muscle forever if you train properly, right? And avoid gaining fat and stay healthy. So keep your protein high. That's the only thing you have to worry about when it comes to all that macronutrient crap. If you also eat good foods. And we went over what that was early in the video. And then number 3, you want to eat in a slight surplus pretty much for 95% of the time. So you gain muscle and don't gain too much fat. And then maybe a couple of years in, if you want to reveal the muscle, and here I'm talking 3, 4, 5 years in, if you haven't gained too much fat, because if you haven't gained too much fat, there's not really any reason to cut for real. But if you want to do that, you can just decrease the amount of calories you eat, and voila, you reveal the muscle you've built over those years with this simple approach. So that's really all you eat. You don't have to worry about whether you eat before or after. You have to broaden your vision to the long term. And that's really the most important thing, is that you stick with this for the long run. And don't get too caught up in the intricacies, like all the noise, all the unnecessary stuff you don't have to worry about, like whether you should eat before or after a workout. Like all this, it doesn't matter.